So I'm not sure exactly, what the date was on my last video testimony, but it's been about a year and a half. Maybe not quite that much, but it's getting close to it. And at the time of making that video, I was still struggling. Before I get into all this, I just want you to know that uh, I'm just a man being led by the Lord to put this out there for anybody that it may help. This is not rehearsed. I'm not a professional, not a public speaker. I'm trying to be bold like the Lord instructs me to be because I've seen my testimony help others. And I've said, numerous times if it will help just one person, I've done my job. But now that I've seen it help others, I'm ready to help more people. So, maybe you can listen to this story and relate. So, a year and a half ago, uh, was in a divorce. I was addicted to drugs, uh, mainly weed and alcohol. I was addicted to pornography. After my wife left, I was so addicted to pornography that I couldn't get up out of bed without looking at pornography every morning. Um, some people have said to me that they don't even believe that you can be addicted that much, but I promise you that I was. I didn't see any way out. I didn't see any way out at all, and I started searching for help. And at the time, COVID had just, you know, kind of wrapped up or was wrapping up, and there was no help. It was 3 to 6 months out to get in to see a counselor, and I said to one of the counselor's assistants, I said, um, in 3 months, I'm going to be divorced. It'll be too late then, you know. And I heard about, through a friend of mine, I heard about Reengage, and uh, that popped into my head when I was looking for a counselor. And so I got a hold of him, and I was like, "What was that class that you took?" And he told me about NLC, New Life Church in Russellville, and that's where he took the class. And I thought, man, this is my only hope. So I reached out to NLC, and then later that day, it wasn't long at all, Mark Bagley had called me back. And that was the first gift from God that I got. They say that you stop what you're doing, turn around, and receive the gifts from the Lord. That was the first gift that I got. I'm not going to say that was the that was the fix to all my problems, but that was the first step. I started meeting with Mark. He encouraged me and started teaching me. He's such a wonderful man. He's a God-fearing man that just wants us to all be better, and he's going to do whatever he can to help us. So, after that, a friend of mine invited me to another church, Pleasant Grove. I started going to Pleasant Grove, and I experienced love at Pleasant Grove that I hadn't had in a really long time. And through that church, I learned a lot about the Word, and I learned about uh, love, like unconditional love, and um, there was a lot of great things that I learned there, but I kept going to both churches, and um, there was a breaking point where I was still going to church and still drinking. I had quit smoking weed, but I was still drinking, and I was still looking at pornography. And to the point where when I was doing these things, sometimes I'd be in tears because I knew like that I was living in this prison that I just couldn't get away from. And I didn't think that I'd ever be able to get away from it. I was convinced that on my own, I couldn't get away from it. I felt like I was a lost cause. People talk about drug addicts and stuff being a lost cause. That's how I felt about myself. Um, I don't know that I even really believed in prayer, but I was at Pleasant Grove. It's, Assembly of God, Pentecostal style church, and I knew something had to give. And I knelt down at that altar, and that old fashioned altar, and I just prayed a simple prayer. I said, Lord, if you can, just take this alcohol and take this pornography out of my life. I don't need this anymore, and I can't do it on my own. The minute that I submitted to the Lord, He took those things from my life, and I didn't even realize it. That was a Sunday evening, and it was Wednesday or Thursday. And now I remind you, like I said, I was looking at pornography every day at that point, and it was Wednesday or Thursday before I realized that I hadn't looked at pornography, and I hadn't craved alcohol like I did every day before that. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't still have to make the decision sometimes not to look at those things or not to, indulge in alcohol. I mean, as my wife said to me the other day, the world is not built for addicts. Sin is all around us, and it's tough, even when you're trying to live by the ways of the Lord. Like, it's tough to deal with that temptation, but the gifts that I've received. So, I've been blessed in so many ways. I've met so many new Christ following people that just build me up and encourage me to do better every day. Man, there's too many to list. There's hundreds of people that I've met over the last year and a half that have influenced me in such an amazing way. My marriage has been restored, and I'll tell you, about the restoration of the marriage. We both started seeking the Lord, and then after that, we were able to come back together. And I give a big props to my wife because, through a lot of that, I was really hard to deal with, and the devil really had a grip on me. Wasn't leading my marriage the way that I should have, and I led us like straight down a really bad path. And you can do that and not even know that you're doing it until it's too late. So, after I was delivered, I've been going to both churches. I've done Reengage twice. I go to a group called New Breed, which is like kind of like a men's, I don't really know what to call it, but it's kind of like a support group for men. They just try to we try to build each other up through fellowship and Christ discussions. We discuss what the pastor has been talking about and how it reflects on our life and how it can make our life better. But, there's so many conversations that happen there. And I've met a lot of really good people and a lot of really good friends and found some serve opportunities through that group, and man, it's just such a better life, a new life. God talks about, in the Bible, it talks about you follow Him and you're going to have life in abundance. And, that's not, there's so many ways to think about it. And I don't even really think about it this way anymore. But, when you hear that, like some people think about financial or, you live God's ways, you'll have financial abundance or material abundance. And that's not what it's about at all. And you're going to find abundance in a way that you didn't know you craved. I used to chase after these things that I thought were going to make me happy. And I thought, at one point, I thought hallucinogenic drugs were going to give me salvation. I thought that I was going to learn something from those things that was going to give me a peace. It was going to give me a calm. It was going to give me comfort. You watch the internet, there's plenty of videos out there that tell you that it will, and I was tricked by the devil that that's what I needed. I told myself that alcohol was, like a reset. I'd just get so drunk that I forget everything. And then, emotionally, I would be kind of humble emotionally the next day. But let me tell you, none of that lasts. It's a short-lived thing. Any comfort or any kind of, any kind of peace that you get from those things is very short lived. And when Jesus talks about being the truth, I've come to find that he is real, and that is true. And the reason why I say that is after everything I just said, the Lord is the only thing that's been consistent for me. And what I mean by that is giving me consistent peace and consistent comfort. Um, it's not something that is a roller coaster like drugs and alcohol and porn addiction is. It's something that can offer you constant peace. You dive into the Word, and anybody that's not familiar with the Word, I mean, everybody has so many places in the Bible that they say to start. Some people want to start from the beginning. Some people want to start, uh, Proverbs, Acts, Ephesians, Romans. There's so many good books that are in the Bible that can give you life advice. But for me, it was the gospel, Matthew especially. But just the four gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Learning who Jesus was and trying to apply that to my life was a game changer. And it's made so many changes. My anger issues are like way under control, and I'm not saying I don't get upset, but I don't let it consume me like it did. Now I'm consumed by the Lord, and He helps me through those situations. I'm much more thoughtful of others now. I'm a much more giving person. Um, I'm much more considerate. You know, um, I know I still need a ton of work. I'm like to the point now where I'm just like, okay, now I know what I need to work on, and I know how to be better. It's a long process. This isn't something that's gonna happen overnight, but I'm here to tell you that there is hope. Like I didn't think that I would ever break free of those chains, and the Lord broke those chains for me. I didn't. There was times in my life that I considered myself an atheist, and I didn't believe in what I'm telling you to be the truth now, but it is the truth. And I challenge you, if you are struggling with believing, or that's not for me, that's how I was, that's not for me, but I challenge you, read the Gospels, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You're not like me, I'm not a good reader. Don't read it. Get an audio book. You can get them for free off the, app store. Just just listen to it and just think about what Jesus went through, and think about who he was, and think about the crucifixion, when he was headed to the cross and people spit on him and pulled his beard and stabbed him, placed that crown of thorns and pushed it into his scalp, you know. And what did he say? Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." He was still forgiving people when he was being beaten to death, and just when I think about that, it softened my heart so much that, I mean, I still fail every day. Like I said, this is a lifelong process, but, I'm getting better every day. And, you know, with help from the Lord and diving into the Word and understanding all of this, uh, I'm excited to see what the future has to hold. So, that's all I had to say today. I'm going to post this online on YouTube, and I'll post it on Facebook. So feel free to comment, share, tell me your story, ask me for help, tell me you didn't like it. I don't care, but just uh, I like the interaction. So uh, yeah, tell me what you think. And before I go, I just want to thank the Lord for everything that He's done for me, all the gifts that He's done. I want to thank my wife for also following the Lord. I want to thank my wife for um, sticking by me through all this. I want to thank my uh, marriage counselor. That's kind of supposed to be a private relationship, so I won't mention him by name. But if anybody needs counseling, just let me know. I can hook you up. He's a good Christian man. Um, Marriage counselor has helped me and my wife. Uh, and I want to say that I'm proud of us, with everything that we've done. There's a lot that we had to overcome, and we have overcome a lot. And like I said, we still have work, but man, God is good. I want to thank Mark Pagley and Caleb Pagley and Patrick Clint Craig. Uh, Without those three men, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I want to thank uh, New Breed and Mark Morales and Lance Lawrence. Those two men are great leaders, and you know they'll even I think the two of them will are pretty humble at that, and they don't like to look at themselves as great leaders, but man, they do such an amazing thing with New Breed. It's That's been a big life changing thing for me as well. So, but there's a lot of people in my life that I need to thank. And uh, I basically just want to thank my whole NLC family and my whole Pleasant Grove family. You know, because they've helped me transform myself. Um, but don't feel excluded if I didn't mention your name. There's just so many people that I owe a lot to. So uh, I hope this helps somebody. Uh, you know, if there's anything that I can help you with as far as getting you resources to make your life better, don't hesitate. Just contact me, and I'll do what I can to help you live the same. What does Mark say? Fully devoted, Christ following life that I'm trying to live. And I promise you, it's a better life than running with the devil. You think that um, living in the ways of the world is, man, I've heard every argument and I've made every argument. Living in the way of the world is just where you want to be. But I promise you, on this side of things is way better. I love y'all, and if I can do anything to help, just let me know.